Hi, everybody. David Noor back with another episode of our Intelligent Growth with my business partner, Jen Cords. Hello, Jen.
Hi, Nor. How are you today?
I'm great, thanks. For our audience, we're delighted you're here. An exciting week at our place. We're hosting our annual Relationship Economics Summit. It's an intimate gathering of kind of executive clients, partners, and friends later this week. And if you follow me or us on LinkedIn, we've also announced the launch of Avneer, which is really the evolution. The official launch is Thursday, and you'll see a press release and more details on that from us. But the goal is to really leverage some emerging technology, specifically generative AI, in a topic that we're passionate about. We've worked on for a whole bunch of years, and the goal is how do we activate dark relationship value through this technology. So stay tuned for more details. We're still stealth mode as we build out our product and really dial in on that product market fit. A lot of great conversations, a lot of great client relationship discussions. But stay tuned, and we'll obviously share more. We're also this will be the last NOR Group one. So as of next week, you'll see a new banner, and we'll still keeping it as Intelligent Growth wherever you watch these. If you're able to join us live or watch the video recording, as well as we're also launch these as a podcast. So continue to search for Intelligent Growth, but the NOR Group kind of branding and banner is going to go away, and our website is going to be replaced by Avneer. One last comment on that front. We're actively collaborating with two profiles. If you're an enterprise B2B seller, would love to have you join our Power User program. If you're a sales leader, VP of Sales, CRO, there's a design partner group as well that we're reaching out. It will give you early access to our technology. It will give you either relationship economics coaching or insights from me, and more importantly, a really tight knit community that's going to guide the direction of functionality, product roadmap, kind of what we're trying to do with this, again, generative AI platform to activate dark relationships. So that's it with the commercial front end of our podcast. This episode is really focused on, and maybe it's because we're going through it. Jen noticed I'm either getting gray faster or I'm losing hair at an accelerated pace, but it's all around change and change management specifically in fueling enterprise growth. That's what we get excited about. I've never seen anybody cut their way to growth. So we talk a lot about obviously intelligent growth, profitable growth, intentional growth, strategic growth, and all of that we bucket under this intelligent growth idea. So Jen, I want to open it up to you with stories. I love stories. I love collecting stories. Share a story of a challenging change environment, one or two that you've been through, and what particularly made it challenging. And I'll do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as most of our audience may know, I've worked with several high growth startups in my career, and one particularly was GitLab. And so I was an early employee with them in their Series A round of funding and scaled them all the way through their IPO. And so through that comes small, lean teams, and then you're adding people, processes, departments, and really what allowed GitLab to grow as much as it did and as quickly as it did was really the culture and some of the values that were instilled early on. And so we did everything asynchronously, documentation, meetings, things like that. And so bringing people on, they had to adjust to kind of the GitLab way of doing things. And when people didn't adjust to that, you could see the friction either in the team because communication wasn't as seamless as possible, or even just people being able to get ramped up really quickly if they didn't actually adopt and sort of change the way they worked to match what the company was doing. You could see where it could become challenging. Another startup that I can think of was a security client out of New York. And I started working with them just as the pandemic hit, and they literally shut their office on day one. My day one was when they shut their office. So none of the employees were going into the office anymore. I was hired to be fully remote. and I had already set up my workspace to be fully remote, but helping the team adjust to kind of that remote first, and documentation and meetings needed to start and end on time because everybody's day would be impacted otherwise, were just some of the things that I got to help them work through. And it was exciting to see how that company adjusted from being 100% in office to then being remote. And some of those team members did move away from the city because now they had that flexibility. And so that was really cool to see and be part of. So more back to you. What sort of things make you think about change?
Yeah, I obviously I've been through my fair share of it, and three buckets come to mind. One is typically leader driven, right? So I've been a part of an organization where you get a new CEO, or you get a new business unit or division president, or a new sales leader, and inevitably they come in and kind of put their own stamp on it. And by the way, for our audience, one of my favorite books is The First 90 Days by Michael Watkins, and he talks about where and how you should focus on the first 90 days, and candidly, where is not a good time or place for you to do that. So one is, one type of change is typically leader led. An executive leader comes in and kind of wants to put their own imprint on the organization, or they're brought in, typically to fix something or elevate something. I don't believe everybody's broken. We're doing well. Let's really raise the bar on it. The second one is organizational. So, again, for whatever reason, it's not really performing at an optimal rhythm. And, either you change processes, or you change a go-to-market motion or strategy, or you change, a communication channel, how you do what you do. And I typically put those in the organizational bucket. And you ideally are participating in how to do this. And we'll talk about the challenges and opportunities in change management. The last one, you brought up the pandemic. I believe it is kind of forced change that's kind of forced on you. If you think about the pandemic, very few people saw it coming. Very few people saw the ripple effect on the organization. I recently heard somebody say, HR was coming up with, daily mandates and daily guidelines on how we function and what we're supposed to do and not do, and so on and so forth. So change that is forced upon us, and we'll talk about this, often creates chaos. And chaos because we didn't, self-selected, we didn't, plan for it, we didn't initiate it, we didn't go, want to go along with it. And that's when your ability to change, your willingness to change. I've heard people call themselves change agents. You know what? Those attributes really come out when you're thrown in, you're forced to change, and there's no other option. There's no going back. There's no, for a long time around this pandemic, you and I heard back to. We can't wait till get back to normal. There's no going back. So those are the three that, and again, various jobs, various companies, startups, enterprise. Obviously, the last 20 years of Nor Group. Those are the typically three buckets of change that I've seen. So on that note, in our prep, you and I were talking about some of the biggest challenges that not just initiating change, but really making it last or sustaining change over time. That a lot of leaders and teams you and I have seen kind of struggle with. So why don't we go down the list? And for our audience, our sessions are typically very content rich. You may want to either take notes or come join us in norgroup.com/forum. Again, norgroup.com/forum. We'll post this list in there for you as well. But Jen, you want to kick us off with that list?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 13 items on our list. Some people may say that's an unlucky number. It's actually my favorite number. But so the lasting change management list that we came up with in conversation was just 13. So the first one is just a resistance to change. So Nor, what are some things that people may feel when they're approaching?
Yeah, you've heard me talk about this in my keynotes. I genuinely believe the only person who actually likes change are babies with dirty diapers, right? And it just, most of us are creatures of habit. Most of us like routine. Most of us like knowing kind of what happens and why and what's next. And So one of the biggest challenges with any kind of lasting change is cultural, and resistance to change is people naturally inclined to stick to what they know, to what they understand, and what's predictable, and what I've done over and over again. And so overcoming this resistance really requires communication, proactive, intentional. Don't confuse. If you make me waste a lot of calories to try to understand what it is you're saying, my mind is going to go to bacon wrapped dates. I love those things, and that's where I'm going to spend calories on. When was the last time I had some? When can I have some again? And so you're going to lose me at hello if you don't articulate benefits of that change. More importantly, involving me. Anytime you involve people that are going to be directly impacted by that change, you're dramatically much more likely to get buy-in, because suddenly it becomes our idea, not corporate's idea shoved down our throats. So that resistance to change is absolutely number one that we need to think about. Let's jump into the next one.
Yeah, so the next one, number 2, is lack of clear communication. You just alluded to it, that if you're not clear on what is changing, what's in it for you, how you can impact that and actually get that buy-in, people are going to be resistant to it. What are some other things that should be involved in that clear communication about change?
You've heard me say this. If people don't know where we're going, if the people don't know where the ship is headed, you should have no expectation of them following you. So clarity, consistency. I recently read a paper that said if you want anything to be remembered and repeated, it should be reinforced 7 times. Not repetitive, but reinforced. Because how often, how many different directions are we all pulled at? So a lot of things, they go through one ear and come out the other, versus, I've heard this before. Oh, John said it, and Beth said it, and Tom said it, and Sandy said it, and maybe this is something I should pay attention to.
Well, I've also heard that reinforcement needs to come across in multiple mediums. So it can't always be verbal or written or just some post on a forum somewhere. It needs to be in different ways, because people do learn and remember information differently.
And you're exactly right. And it also leads to open communication, right? You've heard me coach leaders of open up every one of your Zoom or Teams meetings with, as a reminder, this month, this quarter, this year, here's what we're focused on. Here's where we are in our progress. Here's kind of what I need your help with. No more than 3 kind of reminders to really get everybody on the same page. And Jen, here's the key. The reason for the change, right? The Simon Sinek proverbial, why are we doing this? The benefits of it. And by the way, if they're incremental versus exponential, it makes a huge difference. Hold on a second. I'm already doing well. I'm making money. I'm great. You're asking me to move this from here to there? No, thank you. There's just not a lot of benefit in me doing that. So if the benefits are not just incremental, but exponential, and more importantly, how's that going to impact me? Listen, please don't mess with my Wednesday night bowling league, okay? I appreciate all of your change stuff, but Wednesday nights, I like to roll. And your change is going to mess with my... So if the benefits aren't there, and if I don't understand how it's going to impact me, it's going to be a real struggle in understanding where and how that is going to most benefit what we're trying to do, and where that's going to come from.
Absolutely agree. So then that leads us to the third one, inadequate leadership support. So a lot of times when change isn't successful, it comes down to lack of people who are leading the way, supporting it, or maybe having side conversations about the change because they don't fully believe in it either. So what are your thoughts on the leadership support for change?
Yeah, unequivocally, this has to start from the top. And you and I both have kids, and they're grown now. And when they were little, you and I saw what a sponge they are. Well, again, most people are going to be that way with the leadership. I'm going to watch what you do. I'm going to pay a lot more attention to what you do versus what you say you do. And I can send out emails and I can send memos, and my favorite, we can put really fancy wall art up of how change is so fabulous for the evolution of our... please.
Or that cute cat that's like hanging on something, being like, hang in there.
If you don't believe it, if you don't live it at the top, you should have no expectation that's going to cascade down to the rest of the organization. And that really number 3, inadequate leadership support is a really critical one.
Next on our list, number 4, is lack of resources. So implementing change not only needs to be talked about, but also it needs to be supported. So what sort of resources are most helpful to get change done?
Yeah, anytime you and I hear, resources, a lot of times people think money. It actually time. I believe time is our biggest enemy. You and I are embarking on this apnea journey, and I don't know about you, I just feel like there's not enough hours in the day. And I'm 4:00 this morning. I'm wide awake and I'm staring at my ceiling, and worked till 11 last night. I'm like, where the hell did the day go? And you get a lot of stuff done, but not enough time. Obviously, effort, right? So effort is bandwidth. Effort is enough personnel. Effort is capabilities. Effort is, blocking time and effort to actually make that change kind of happen. Last but not least is capital. It's money, it's resources, and it's doomed to fail if it's not a priority. And the way you know it's a priority is leadership allocates resources. You and I've talked to leaders, specifically RevOps, right? I love this. We need our RevOps to magically and mystically do all the things we need before the next board meeting. Okay, how many people do you have working on this? Oh, partially one admin. Okay, what kind of tools do you have? Well, we've got Salesforce. Okay, great. You can tell it's just not enough. It's not a priority enough for them to really invest time, effort, resources to get there. So I tend to think of lack of resources, time first, kind of effort, bandwidth, personnel, capability second. Capital is kind of the last. It's important, but it's the last of the 3 to me.
Well, and then the last one, so capital can help accelerate the personnel side of things and alleviate with some level of Band-Aid. But if the change is going to be sustainable, you're going to have to make it the new norm within your organization, like the new way of doing business, a new headcount, whatever it is. And so, yes, money can help short term, but long term, absolutely, it has to be a least relied upon part of the process. Yep. So now moving on to number 5 is undefined goals and objectives. So without understanding where we're going, how we're getting there, why we're going there, change is doomed to fail. So in what ways have you seen people struggle with initiating change?
Yeah, it's you've heard me again. I feel like I've got a set of Norisms, but you've heard me talk to people about I'm allergic to vagueness. And that's, if you're looking for sustainable change, I refuse to believe anybody wakes up on any given day, decide to fail. We don't have the right metrics, and we don't have the right measurements. We don't have the right goals and objectives. We don't have the right mile markers, right? And without those, again, how will you tell me about the progress we're making? How will people feel about the progress they're making? So you and I run our business through OKRs. We work with a lot of clients on, net promoter score and sentiment analysis. And those are all metrics, and they're critical in any change initiative, is to ensure. And the other thing, I will post this in the forum, but you've seen people talk a lot about SMART goals, right? Love those. We believe in SMART and FAST. And FAST is also an acronym that, again, we'll post. If that's not clickbait, I don't know what is. Come to norgroup.com/forum, because we'll post not just SMART, but FAST goals that I think are critical in any kind of change environment.
Absolutely agree. So number 6 is then culture and mindset.
Yeah, I referred to culture earlier. You really need a catalyst. I'm going to take you back to one of the first time you had a chemistry class, and you remember mixing one chemical with another that created some sort of reaction.
Yes, like Mentos in bottles of Coke.
Yeah, preferably without blowing up the lab or without harming anybody. But that's a catalyst, right? So there's got to be an impending catalyst, or a barrier, right? So either we want new heights or we've reached against some sort of a barrier. That's got to become the rallying cry. So the culture, the mindset, I've always believed how we think drives our actions, drives our language, drives what we tend to focus on, prioritize on. So without that catalyst, without that oomph, without that, by the way, very technical term, without that, need for us to break through barriers and get there, you're not giving people the right reasons. And you've seen this. If the culture is rigid, well, that's just the only way we do things because that's who we are, or if it's hierarchical, right? If your place still needs 18 signatures to get anything done, real change is going to be difficult. Or if you're not open to new ideas, that's also really challenging in terms of not just introducing a change, but really seeing it last and prevail.
So moving on to number 7, halfway through our list, inadequate training and skills related to the change. We talked about earlier lack of resources. This is slightly different. So in what ways is inadequate training and skills?
Yeah. I tell people, and you and I, again, we've coached leaders, and digital is a big facet of this. A lot of organizations announce the change, right? Here's what we're going to do. If you don't tell me how to get there, how to do it, how to do what it is you're asking me to do, again, you're not really leaving me in a position of success. You're not setting me up to succeed. So training and development without the adequate skills, it's not an event. Yeah, we're going to put on a class. A class is an event. How about training and development? How about a process? How about weekly brown bag lunches? How about monthly updates on and really creating, I know you've done this, right? You roll out a new technology. If you don't, what happens if you don't schedule the training? What happens if you don't teach people how to use Outreach or Salesforce or Gong or Sixth Sense or any of these?
Lack of adoption is really what comes, and it's one more thing, and they get, a lot of times if it's sales and you haven't trained them or given them proper support, they'll get frustrated by it, and then it kind of becomes Wild West. They'll go back to doing whatever they were doing before you had initiated the change, which then doesn't help anyone. And so yeah, it's that reinforcement. It's also ensuring, or to our earlier points, that they understand the why and how it benefits them. Because if you add one more thing to their list, they're going to potentially get frustrated by that change, and then it's going to create unnecessary friction.
And you also start seeing smoke come out of people's ears, right? Okay,
yeah, you want me to do what in the little time that I already have? Like,
yeah. Have you seen that? Have you seen the tilted head deer in the headlight kind of like our dogs do? It's like, wait, you want me to do what now? And it is mind-boggling of how much change organizations roll out, all with good intentions, that compound and really create challenges of getting through the day. You're gonna laugh. I follow this guy's on LinkedIn, and it's like candid sales scenarios, and he sets the stage of sales right now is under a lot of pressure to produce. And yet, you get calls after calls or emails after emails. Be in this meeting. Be in this meeting. Be on this call. Be in this meeting. We're gonna have all hands. We're gonna have and they're like, okay, with all of this, what am I supposed to sell, right? So it just reminds me of how much different parts of the organization ask every individual without really thinking, right, how much is already on their plate, and when are we giving them really the bandwidth to do the job that we're asking them to do, right?
Couldn't agree more. And if our audience is just joining us, Nora and I are going through a list of 13 challenges that people have initiating lasting change. So to recap, the first 7 is 1, resistance to change; 2, lack of clear communication; 3, inadequate leadership support; 4, lack of resources; 5, undefined goals and objectives; 6 is culture and mindset; 7 is inadequate training and skills. And so then moving on to 8 is short-term focus.
Yeah, I tend to talk about this of think big, start small, find a way to scale. Think big. In 5 years, we're going to be a very different organization. good for you. I could get hit by a bus this afternoon, right? So how about like this quarter? How about next? So you need wind in your sail in any kind of a change environment to kind of battle that organizational inertia or people's resistance to change. It's almost like your vaccine to everybody that fights that change. And short-term focus is all about quick wins. It's all about um, getting closer to that long-term vision, that long-term change place, one step at a time, one stair, level at a time. And if you don't really focus on those quick wins for momentum, for kind of keep nudging people along, right, to see those benefits, you're going to have a really hard time getting them to buy in on that long-term perspective. And you and I've heard this, right? Crap, we can't get this first step right. How the hell are we going to get step 30 to 70 right? So getting, and by the way, enormous learning opportunity for that change management or project management office or whoever's leading that. Of again, I teach a class at Emory University around strategy visualization, and we talk a lot about human-centered design. And I'm a big believer of observation, observable behaviors. Are they showing up? Are they excited? Are they committed? Are they doing what they need to do the right things? And that the outcomes you want will come, but we got to celebrate those short-term wins, short-term focuses.
Absolutely. And that short-term focus isn't necessarily shiny object syndrome where you're jumping from one thing to another. Those short-term wins and those quick wins really need to build upon one another. That's moving you towards that ultimate goal that you're after, not just doing a whole bunch of things. Because you've also said people often mistake busy work with forward movement. And so that short-term focus needs to really be on that movement forward. So then,
absolutely. And just as for our audience, it's vibration versus forward motion. And what Jen is alluding to is, and you see people do this all the time. Hey, listen, I'm doing a lot of busy work. Have you seen how much busy work I'm doing? I've got a lot of busy work going on. I'm really busy. Doing what? Is it really moving the key ideas forward? So don't confuse that busy work, that vibration, with forward motion. And that forward motion is what really matters in any change environment.
Absolutely. So then number 9 is ignoring feedback. And you mentioned it in your previous comment that the short-term focus allows you to make adjustments. So how is ignoring feedback a challenge?
I want to add 2 to this one. One is, you and I have talked about, feedback is the rear view mirror. Feed forward is the windshield. So I believe you need both. Feedback on what's going to happen in the past. Feed forward, how do I think about this scenario differently? The other thing that at number 2, you know how I know people are not listening in an organization? One, they're quiet long enough to think about their answer as soon as you're done talking. 2, they interrupt. 3, they ask questions about something that was just answered or something that was just discussed. And it's a telltale sign that not listening to concerns or feedback, from people that are impacted most by the change, it leads to this increased resistance, right? People start to believe that, and it's a missed opportunity because they don't think you hear them. They don't think their ideas matter. They don't think that you're agile enough or nimble enough to modify your potential solution. All these lead back to really that ignoring feedback, ignoring feed forward, ignoring, I said earlier, observable behaviors. What people do and how they do it should tell you a lot about, do they get it? Do they internalize it? Do they believe in it? Will they do it if you're not there or when you're not there?
I'd add one more to that also is a coach of mine early in my athletic career said that if you have a suggestion for change or doing something differently, come with a solution. And so when people give you feedback and they're just complaining about things, that really just sort of adds to the plate of, well, these are other problems we have to solve. But if they come with, here's the challenge, and this is what I'm not liking about whatever change you're trying to implement, could we try XYZ? Or here are some other things that maybe could help. That's always helpful to a leader because you're coming as a problem solver versus just being a complainer. So
unequivocally, yes. Can I just real quickly add that?
Yeah.
The more leaders I meet and spend time with, the more it reinforces. They realize their challenge is there. They don't want excuses. They don't want reasons of why something doesn't happen or why we can't do something or within legal and ethical bounds, right? Let's just clarify that. So love your idea of, and by the way, most leaders also don't like bad news and don't like bad news delivered late. So bring it up early. Talk about in this change process, here's a potential obstacle, challenge. And as you said, I'm immediately turning that into, here's an opportunity. Here's what I think we can do. Here's our options. Most leaders love options. Good, better, best, right? Any of these will solve our problem. It's either going to take a little more time or money or effort or whatever, but there's solutions that I've thought about. And ideal if that conversation creates, or your suggestions or your ideas create better conversation, deeper conversation, richer conversation, uncover a root cause of why something happened. I'm always fascinated by those, right? Not just what happened. This software isn't working. How many times have you and I have heard that? Or this process just doesn't work. Okay, help me understand why. Help me understand where is it falling short. Help me understand what is it not doing. And let's come up with some options of how can we get there. And you've heard me say, I think I've always believed no is intellectually lazy. Anybody can say no. Anybody can say it. Anybody can put up a blockade, put up a, nope, can't do it. Nope, not going to happen. Never. Nope. How can we get there is a heck of a lot more interesting.
Couldn't agree more. So then moving on to number 10 is lack of follow through.
Yeah, I was with a group of leaders last week and I reiterate this. Follow up is a transaction. Hey, did you get an email? Yeah, okay, great, thanks. See ya. Follow through is a process. So when you don't follow through, and I've always said implementing change, initiating change, that's the easy part. It's really following through on, regular reviews. How do we adjust? It's seldom a switch. Change is not a switch, it's a dial. So what do we need to dial up? What do we need to dial back? And the only way I know how to do that is getting involved. This is the classic case of, you got to get in the arena. As I think about my career, the change that I've hated the most was shoved down on us by corporate so far removed from the day-to-day business that you just like, are you kidding me? The best changes I've ever had is when corporate gets out of Mahogany Row and comes out in the field and either goes on calls with you or gets on the factory floor or really sees kind of, again, not just what's happening, but why. And you see it in people's faces. They go from feeling alienated by corporate and those guys and those SOBs, and they're as dumb as brick. They have no idea what we do and how we do it. To, oh my gosh, let me show you. And let me show you why this doesn't work or how this doesn't work or what do we need to do. And much more intimate, much more arm in arm, much more of a demonstrated, and this is really critical for the audience, demonstrated vested interest. You can tell me you have my best interest at heart, and it will go through one ear and come out the other because you don't know me. You don't know what I go through. You don't know what my challenges are. You don't know what my obstacles are. When you come and sit next to me, when you come to that factory floor and watch the process or get behind the cart and move things, and now you understand kind of where I'm coming from, and you understand what I'm, and it's a heightened level of empathy, which is hands-on. It's I'm not just walking in their shoes. I'm walking in their shoes in that environment, dealing with that challenge.
Yes. So then number 11 is competing priorities. Organizations are trying to move fast and get a lot of stuff done. And prioritization is always going to be a challenge.
But enough about our life right now, okay? But enough about, this is full transparency. Audience doesn't know this is a therapy session, right? No, it's again human nature, and what we coach people to think about is, as human beings, we tend to the audience is gonna love this one. I believe we tend to underestimate what we can achieve in the long term. Look where you've been in the last 3 years, 5 years, right? We overestimate what we can achieve in the short term. I'll get it to you this afternoon. It's already 4 o'clock and you got a whole bunch of other things in your plate. So when? So competing priorities are seldom top of mind. And, you and I see clients with multiple initiatives, right? I jokingly tell the story of talking to one leader who I asked about their priorities, and he said, we've got 69 priorities. And I said, respectfully, you have no priorities, because I can't keep up with that many. And I tell most clients, you need a new initiative like you need a hole in your head. And instead of trying to go 90 miles an hour in 5 different directions, what if we went 45 miles an hour in one direction? And I think more clients would get more done. So without clear prioritization, the change becomes diluted, or it gets lost in the shuffle, or which one of these 75 things do you want me to work on? Because I've got 128 other things I'm trying to get done. And it just gets lost. It gets silly.
Yes. One of my team members from a previous company that I was at, when I would ask for something new at leading the team, he would then say, I'm working on XYZ. Which one of these do you want me to stop working on or deprioritize to get what you just asked for done? In like small groups like that and small focuses, that is a way to manage it a little bit, but it's also a large organization. Deprioritizing something may not be an option, but ensuring that you do have clear priority of what takes precedence over something else helps create that clarity that we mentioned earlier.
Absolutely. Not to interrupt you, but I want to build on that as well. For our audience, we've recently moved into a physical office, and home office has been great. Really moving into a physical office, communicating those priorities are critical. So this next week, I'm gonna write my top 10 on those posted easel notes and put it on my door. So anybody that comes has got no confusion of what is it that I'm spending my time and cycle and efforts on. And again, if you come in and ask for something that you believe needs to be on that list, what I want you to do, tell me which one of these you want me to take off. Tell me which one of these should be deprioritized, so then we can kind of add to the list. But keep throwing those in there. I don't think it's the answer. Let's hold up a second. I love this. Thanks for jumping in. Robert wants to know, is it time for change management considered harmful? Acknowledgement to Dextra. Time for change management considered harmful?
Is it time for change management? I would say it depends on if it's harmful to the organization or not. I mean, change is inevitable. And how you manage that change for your team and you lead them, I think that's more indicative of what the company is made of than the change that's being made itself.
Yeah, and number one, Robert, thanks for jumping in. One of the things we talked about earlier was, that culture and the mindset. I don't know of an organization that doesn't need to change. I don't know of a team or individuals that don't need to change. So building an environment, and I've always said, your culture is your brand. If you look at some of the brands we love, have you not seen them change? Either their labels or their go-to-market strategies or kind of how they do what they do. And right. So having an environment where people can openly talk about, yeah, it's time for us to think about doing things differently. I admire leaders who challenge their status quo, not spend a whole bunch of cycles defending it, because those are the ones that will not allow external change happen at a faster pace than internal. Jack Welch, regardless of what you think of the man, always said, the day that external change happens at a faster rate than our ability to change within the organization is the day that it's over. It really becomes challenging. It really becomes for people to keep up. And again, Robert's jumping back in. The point is, future state is the go-to. Absolutely. Future state is, this is what you gotta paint the picture. Give me a lighthouse of where we're going. Give me ideally a path of how we're gonna get there. That's where I'm gonna believe you early on and believe in you as you start to kind of lead us down that path. So Jen, what number were we on? I lost count.
It's all right. So we're now on number 12. So it's the lack of employee involvement.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by people who force change on other people versus let's go ask them. And I've said this. I met Carol Tomei, CEO of former CFO at Home Depot, now CEO of UPS. And I don't know this to be the exact fact, but Carol, I think 5'6", so not a big statured leader. Yet in our conversation, she often talked about going out to various UPS facilities and meeting with the leadership that she kind of inherited and she's working with, and asking a very simple question: how can I help? That to me is the epitome of a servant leader. A lot of people talk about servant leadership. In change management in particular, how can I help is demonstrative of that employee involvement. So really identify, and Jen, I tend to think of the Target logo. The people that are going to be most impacted should be at the center. That's where I'm starting. Then what kind of ripple effect will that create? Then the next group, the next group, the next group. And I'm getting them involved early and often in the process. Without their involvement, they're going to feel alienated. They're going to feel like you don't care. And you're doing this to me, not with me.
Couldn't agree more. So then our last item, or our last challenge on our list, is not evaluating and learning from past mistakes. So earlier we talked about the lack of follow through. This is just slightly different, about not learning and evaluating from mistakes from previous organizational changes.
That's exactly right. So, and again, I appreciate Robert jumping in. Adaptation is continuous, not discrete. You're exactly right. I've yet to see any change initiative in a whole bunch of years that I've been doing this that goes perfectly smooth from the planning to the execution. So you are going to stumble. You, the organization, the team, something is going to come up short. Really, and again, military does after action reports. A lot of companies do this as well. It's all about evaluating. It's all about learning. And I believe in that. The sprints, Jen, that you lead with our development team, love those, right? Every sprint, what went well, what didn't go well, what do we do better, more next time? So if you don't assess past change efforts, you are going to be doomed to repeat the same mistakes. That's where that evaluation, that's where the learning, that's where adapting comes from. And again, for our audience, if you just joined us, Jen and I have been covering 13 challenges to creating lasting, sustainable change in every organization, every initiative. Jen, I want to ask you, obviously the focus of this session was on fueling enterprise growth. Of the ones we've mentioned, and maybe one or two that we didn't mention, are there some that really stand out for you as kind of critical in thinking about specific to enterprise growth?
So there are three that are really critical in my mind, and based on past work that I've done, is one being maintaining that agility. So like the not evaluating, learning from past mistakes, making sure that you have a short-term focus on those quick wins. So that maintaining agility, creating a way to ensure that you're on the right path and that everybody still has buy-in and you're still going in the direction that you want to go. At GitLab, we called it the MVP. It's minimal viable product is the first thing that we needed to roll out. And then you iterated and changed on top of that as you progressed. So nothing was ever perfect, and you always had to be okay kind of in that non-perfect state, but it was good. And it's not a good enough. It was a very good product. It could stand on its own, but there's always ways to make anything better. So maintaining that and rolling it out when it's ready enough and we're going to keep going allows you to move very quickly, and it maintains that agility. The next one that I would say is critical is the leadership alignment. When leaders of the entire organization aren't giving you the same message or leading in the same direction or talking about whatever change is happening in the same way, or they have those little side conversations, just like kids, your team members will see that and they will pay attention more to that than the verbatim that you actually do say. And so you need to make sure that it's unified front from all leadership. Everybody's bought in. If there are any disagreements or challenges, those are handled offline or in a one-to-one type situation. But leadership across the board is coming at this change 100% all in. So then the team members are going to be 100% all in. The last one that I would say is hypercritical is that knowledge and skills gap. Everybody's trying to do more. Everybody is being asked to do multiple things within their role, wearing tons of different hats, making sure that people are armed with enough training, enablement, tools to get their own job done, plus initiate this change and adapt to this new change is going to be critical to make sure that it's sticky and that it lasts and it actually moves the organization in that direction versus being a temporary Band-Aid.
So I want to make sure I highlighted your top three when it comes to fueling enterprise growth. It was maintaining agility, it was leadership alignment,
yep,
and it was that knowledge and skills gap. Are those the good three ones? Okay, beautiful. So before I share mine, love it. John Carroll. By the way, if you don't know about Service Council, you need to know about Service Council. Any leader in customer service, customer experience, field service needs to check out Service Council. Just got back from their service symposium. Fantastic gathering of executives. But John's asking, we hear a lot about erosion of change. How can an organization make change sticky? John, great question. We talked about earlier 13 challenges to sustaining, and we'll post those in the North Forum community. If I were to give you three, crystal clear vision of why we need to change, John, the resources, time, effort, capital to sustain it and continue to reinforce it. And I'm going to go back to something Jen said, the right training, development, coaching, mentoring of how to change. A lot of times change runs out of steam, runs out of momentum. Either people don't know how to do it or they're not seeing the success from their efforts. Let's just talk about, and this is not a personal attack on John Carroll, but so I'm going to use myself as an example. Let's just say I've gotten a little heavy and I need to go to the gym. I go to the gym once, not going to make a lot of difference. If I keep going to the gym, and it's not just going to the gym, it's a lot easier not to put it in than try to work it off. So if I watch my diet, if I exercise and I see, I look better, I feel better, pants are not as tight, I'm shedding some of the winter coat, right? And now I'm motivated to continue doing that and change my lifestyle, not just appear, otherwise I'm going to gain it right back. So it's about sustaining that over time and really celebrating those small wins that, John, it's going to make a big difference. Jen, anything to add?
I would just add that starting with the why that we talked about earlier and helping everyone understand where you're going and why you're going there is really going to be impactful to get that stickiness and to get everybody moving in the same direction. because otherwise it is going to be corporate or the leaders forcing something down on the rest of the team, and the rest of the team just has to adjust. And they may not tell you they're doing it a different way, but they may do it a different way. And so the change you think is happening is not actually happening. So getting involved and explaining the why and reinforcing that why clearly and consistently is going to help make it sticky.
And John, one other one to build on that, Jen mentioned, really elevating the why. I would say demonstrate the why. I would say the leaders to roll up their sleeve. Change is not a spectator sport. Get in the arena, roll up your sleeves. I brought up Carol Tomei from UPS. The woman gets in a brown uniform and goes on rides with truck drivers. Right? I don't think we need Undercover Boss as a TV show for leaders to figure out what the hell's happening in their companies. So get in the arena and really see what's happening and why, and become an advocate, a flag-carrying advocate of why this change matters to us. And again, celebrating the small wins becomes a big one. So John, thanks for jumping in. Man, I don't know about you, but I need more cheerleaders like Phil Walden in my life. Phil, very kind of you. Yeah, we love doing this, and we hope every Tuesday at noon Eastern, we release a new episode of Intelligent Growth, and I hope the audience will keep coming back. So Phil, thanks for that comment. So I was going to give the audience and Jen my three in terms of challenges, really sustainable change challenges when it comes to fueling enterprise growth in this order. Number one, you got to make sure that the customers are at the center of that change. So a lot of people talk about customer satisfaction or customer centricity. And that's great. I believe in customer obsession. I believe in kind of the Amazon or Bezos kind of mindset of that customer is the only reason we're in business. So if that change, I said earlier, the target logo, really think about the people that it impacts most at the center. If that change doesn't improve that customer's condition, if it doesn't benefit them, if it doesn't remove friction, if it doesn't make it easier, fewer clicks for them to buy, why the hell are we doing it? Yeah, organizations got bloated, and that's a different issue. But keeping that customer at the center of all that we do, particularly as the enterprise expands, it really becomes more difficult to maintain that same level of customer focus and service quality that you had at a smaller company or as you were growing. Really critical that change happens without alienating that customer base. So that's number one. Number two, I would say prudent risk. I've never believed in risk at any cost or silly risk or inexcusable risk or risk that's unnecessary. Yet most companies pretty quickly figure out that perfect execution box. Right? I know my products, I know my services, I know how this works. Unless you take some prudent risk, unless you make some bets. And by the way, I believe in three types of bets: headaches, heartburn, or aneurysm. Headaches, I can take Aleve or Tylenol for. Heartburn, Zantac will do, and Prilosec will do. And this session brought to you by our drug companies. No, I can get the heartburn also resolved. Aneurysm is difficult to come back from. So if you're customer obsessed and you take prudent risk by making small bets, knowing that 8 out of 10 may go nowhere, but the 2 that hit are going to be phenomenal, I love that. And I don't know of an organization that can really uncover new frontiers without taking prudent risk, which then leads me to, I've tried to coach my kids in doing this. I'm also coaching more and more leaders to think about this. Elevate, amplify, enhance your predictability, your ability to anticipate. That is critical in any kind of change management to fuel growth. To fuel growth, you've got to anticipate. I've always told the story, and Joan is jumping in, by the way. Thanks for jumping in. Great point about customer obsession. They really are the reason. I tell the story of many of you know I have 42 first cousins. I was born in Iran, big family. Our grandfather taught many of us kids at a very young age to play chess, and I didn't get it then, but he made it fun and it was interesting and a lot of reminiscing about those family times. But what he was really trying to teach the kids at a very young age was anticipate. Think about 3 steps ahead, 3 moves ahead. And what am I going to do if they move this? And what are my next several options? And I believe impactful change management, lasting change management really requires leaders to anticipate. And anticipate how will this land, anticipate the best way for us to communicate. And it's a lot easier said than done, by the way. It's very difficult for you to think about fire sprinklers if you're constantly walking around with fire extinguishers. If you're going from putting out one fire to the next, it's very difficult for you to think of the design of where the sprinklers should go. And how do we suppress that fire even before it starts, much less, fighting it afterwards. So,
well,
yeah, go ahead.
Just to add to that last point, it's really important that your leaders, to the comment you made earlier, is think big and start small, finding your way to scale. The leaders do need to think and communicate that large, long-term strategy, but then scale it back and roll it back to that day-to-day. In this quarter, or this week, we're focused on X, and this month we're going to do Y, this quarter we're doing Z, and really make those small incremental changes while still thinking very large.
Does this have anything to do with the 72 things I'm asking you to do this afternoon? Is this a personal? No, I'm kidding.
Potentially, but that we're not enough about us.
Enough about us. Yeah. So for our audience, if you joined us late, we hope this has been useful to you. We encourage you to check it out. The recording is obviously available. We try to do these live. Search for Intelligent Growth wherever you also consume podcasts. A couple of 3 very specific closing comments. Number 1, we will post the list that we shared in the NOR Group forum. So if you just go to norgroup.com/forum, you'll find in the RevOps group typically is where we post these things. So that's where the list will be. Number 2, really excited about a new event we're creating for 24. I'm going to hold off on the name because I want you to see it on our website when we do turn it live. But it's all about how do I change when chaos is forced on me. We're seeing a lot of that across a broad spectrum of clients. And the goal is to create a change management process, experiential for teams, 10, 12 people max. We get you out of the office. We really talk about, and we put you in situations where that change is forced on you and figure out how you navigate your way through it. And we're really excited about, so there's a reason we did this session. And I want you to keep an eye out for more details on a really unique, interesting event that we're planning on for 24. Last but not least, again, this is the last NOR Group Intelligent Growth episode. Starting next week, we'll be back with the AVNIR Intelligent Growth. So look for that announcement this Thursday officially. And we hope you'll join us each Tuesday at noon Eastern for a new episode. Jen, any closing comments?
That we appreciate everybody joining us, and that we know change is hard, and it is something that you and I have been going through, not only a digital transformation, but also just our business structure and what we're focused on. And so really having that clear and open communication is important, and understanding why you're going somewhere, not just where you're going, is going to help make that sticky and make it really impactful for not only your internal team members, but also communicating externally. when organizations change and shift. So I would just say we're all in there together with change and keep after it.
Rolling rocks gather no moss.
Exactly.
That's why change could actually be better for you than you can imagine. On behalf of Gen Cords, I'm David North. Thanks for joining us for Intelligent Growth. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining. Take care.